Hello, everyone. It is Psychic Liz Cross here. Thank you for coming back to the channel. Now, I have to introduce you to someone new. Some of you will actually already know who she is because she has been in a group for quite some time, but this is Miss Sina. Now, a little background information for you, and I'll let her introduce herself. Miss Sina does read tarot cards. She's very gifted, but she also has had many readings throughout, the last couple of years. And her questions are always so in depth. I'm like, listen, we've got to do a video. Now she has turned me down. Miss Sina has turned me down. And today we managed to hit the record button. So, Miss Sina, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
Fantastic. And you have a wonderful voice. Just to let you know, Miss Sina is still getting over a bad flu. So you'll just have to excuse us. Tell us about yourself, Miss Sina. How long have you been on the psychic scene?
Probably most of my life. I find it fascinating. And I only started reading tarot cards probably within the last couple of years, but I taught myself through watching videos and getting messages from my guides about that I should do it.
That is fabuloso. You're awesome, by the way. And you guys will see how awesome she is. Wait till you hear these questions, okay? Most of you that have been on the Patreon for quite some time, what Patreon, Liz? Well, remote viewing and beyond, that's where you can find us. We're all in the Discord. We're all on the Patreon. And a lot of these, just tidbits from readings, I can honestly tell you every time Sina has had a reading, a lot of that information ends up in the hands of the Patreon subscribers because I post it. It's such good information. Where would you like to start today, Miss Sina?
So I would like to ask questions about specifically regarding the reincarnation cycle because you've done videos regarding this subject and I wanted to probe further. And I would like to probe maybe some Buddhist monks and Jesus about it since he believes that, Buddhism resembles what he likes to what he believes in. So maybe we can bring in Jesus and who does he think is a good person to also ask these questions?
Yeah. Okay. Go straight to Buddha himself, right?
Oh,
so Buddha, I don't know anything about Buddhism, right? I just know like a little bit like the reincarnation. I don't know too much about the cycle. I haven't read about Buddhism, but Buddha always comes across to me as this collective entity that you can pull information from. It's very peaceful. I wouldn't say it's overflowing with love. It just is, right? It's very content. It's very grateful. So what questions would you have for Buddha?
Okay, so there is a belief that in order to rise above the reincarnation cycle, you have to ascend. So are Buddhist monks on the same path as ascended masters who supposedly have ascended?
Okay, now you know why Miss Sina is in the driving seat here. Are Buddhist monks on a different path to those of us? Are they on the path to ascended masters? Yes, that is correct.
Okay. What percentage of the current population on Earth have ascended as of today? 22, 23.
So as in they've ascended whilst they are on the earth plane?
Yes.
Oh, aren't you smart? What percentage have ascended whilst living on the earth? Very, very small percentage. This is very insightful. It's less than 5%.
And what exactly is ascension in the sense of what the Buddhist monks have done and the ascended masters?
What exactly is ascension? It's ascension of consciousness. It's existing on a higher spiritual plane than most of the population.
Okay. And um, how is karma different than dharma?
How is karma different than dharma? How is karma different? Karma is the full circle. Dharma is the just ever flowing.
If you
Let's talk about that. Can you just briefly explain, because I know you'll know, what dharma is? Because, you know, a lot of people may not know.
well, I have my own understanding. I think there's a confusion, or maybe it could be debated as to what dharma is.
Mhm.
But I believe karma is where it's kind of like cause and effect. If you do something to someone, you will at some point have to experience it at a later time. Or it could also be said that it's like a way of thinking or a memory or experience. And so if you can, you will continue to live the same karma until you learn the lesson of that experience.
Mhm.
And I believe dharma is where you've learned the lesson and you're walking a righteous path and you've overcome karma, so you won't have to experience that lesson anymore. Is that correct?
You don't have to experience. That is correct. Very good. That is correct. So the big question is, I guess, how do we achieve dharma? It takes many lifetimes to achieve dharma. Many, many lifetimes, thousands. You have to completely play out every scenario in the karmic cycle in order to rise above it. And that's a very difficult thing to do, because what the Buddha is telling me is the fact that, a lot of these cycles, this karma can trap us. So we can end up in a karma trap for several lifetimes, even like 100 lifetimes. And that's the full enlightenment, is being able to rise above the karma trap, recognize it, process it, give thanks and gratitude for it, and then move on to the next lesson.
Is it possible to do it in one lifetime if you're aware of how to do it?
That's a good question. Is it possible to do it in one lifetime? No. Let me ask this question, Ms. Sina, if you don't mind. The CTT, the consciousness transformation techniques, is obviously consciousness expansion, and it processes trauma and rids us of the trauma. That is correct. Thank you. Is that an important step to consciousness ascension? Absolutely vital. So the only thing that I know, and I say that, well, I mean, I know other things, but the only modality that I use is the CTT. And that's where we're doing an energy exchange, right? So we're throwing out the bad energy and we're replacing it with the good energy. That's the short version. And what happens is, when you are basically doing a soul retrieval, you're retrieving those pieces that were stolen from you through trauma and difficult situations, and you're putting those pieces back in, right? Your consciousness is expanding and you're achieving a sort of a enlightenment, as it were. Could we actually do thousands of CTT sessions on one person, and they would then ascend consciousness into like a ascended master? No, that doesn't surprise me. The reason that doesn't surprise me is if you think about how many lifetimes we've had to program our soul, and, I don't think there's enough hours in the day to get rid of all the trauma that we've experienced. And there's not. That's a confirmation. There's not. To get rid of all the trauma that we've experienced on, hundreds and even thousands of lifetimes. Okay, so what else would you like to know?
So there's a website that I've been following to get more information on Ascension, and there's a belief that the chakras are related to ascending, and the more light you have in your chakras, the more I guess you can ascend.
Mm-hmm.
Is this correct? Is this correct?
Let's see. The more light you have in your chakras, the more viable you are to ascend. No, that's incorrect.
Okay.
It's what you do with the light. That's what's most important. So even if it's a small amount of light, you may be filled with light, but even if you only have a small amount of light, it's how you use that light that is most important.
So if you walk a dharmic path, which is, I guess, dharma is walking a righteous path, is that correct?
Is dharma walking a righteous path? Yes, in the eyes of source, yes, but you've also elevated your consciousness where even if you're on the earth plane, okay, because I think you're referring to things on the earth plane, humans on the earth plane, that nothing phases you, right? You have this full understanding of every single interaction or event that you have taking place in your entire lifetime. Now, as a child, that's very difficult because we come here, we have a brain, we're blank slates, right? Except for what we've been pre-programmed to experience. And, we don't have that full comprehension. We're totally emotional bundles of joy, right? We experience all the ranges of emotions as a child. So let me ask this, how would you explain that if somebody is born here and they're growing up and they're living on the earth plane, how would they achieve that dharmic state? So I don't know why this answer is coming forward, but it can only be achieved for individuals over the age of 40.
Okay. So now you said that ascension is raising your vibration or energy, but is it, so which density is ascension? Is it in the fourth density, the fifth density?
So ascension to equate to ascended master level?
Yes.
Okay. Because most of us are on like the second or third density, right? And so, for us, going into one level higher, which is like third density level, that's a huge leap. Most of us just keep reincarnating in level 2, even though we've had thousands of lifetimes. Which density level are we at when we have achieved ascended master status? 7.
Okay. The people on Earth right now, the 5%, what level or what density are they on?
The people on Earth, the less than 5%, what density are they on? They're on level 4.
Okay. What density did Jesus or Yeshua reach?
Ooh, good question. What density on the earth plane? I'm going to ask Jesus himself. Jesus, what density on the earth plane did you reach? He was at level 2 on the earth plane, level 2. He's now sits below source, but he had to come in at level 2 density in order to affect the masses, right? In order to understand the struggles that the everyday person understands. Because if you think about it, somebody who's coming in at this higher density level, this dharmic level, they don't have to understand the struggle. They automatically understand it, right? The struggle is nothing to them. Struggle is, it just is. It's something that we go through, but they have no emotional reaction to, only one of gratitude and thankfulness that they had to experience that event. Other than that, there's no emotional attachment to those traumatic events. Level 2 is very emotional. That's where most of us are. You know, we have emotions about money, we have emotions about food, we have emotions about, all of our family. When you're in a dharmic level state, it's like people are just there, right? They're there. We're all working towards the same goal. And it's just this elevated state of consciousness.
When he died, was he still in the second density? And when he came back?
Good question. When you died, were you still in the second density? Yes, until he went into the spirit world. And then he came back and he ascended just below source, and then he came back.
And what density was that just below source?
What? Oh, these are great questions. Now you see why Miss Sina is like the bee's knees. What density level is just below source? It's like around 15. It's like the highest of the high. Does anybody else operate on the density level? No, only Jesus. What about any other? No, he's adamant. Only Jesus operates on that level. And I feel like that leads a lot of, people to question, well, what about, Allah and Muhammad and other prophets and other saints and other beings, right? I'm not trying to say that they're not as important, but what Jesus is telling us is that these individuals are so enlightened, they're so special, they're so profound that they actually have their own individual levels of density, and nobody else can get on that level. That's interesting, isn't it? This is why I love your questions.
What about the archangels? How do the archangels play into this?
Do the archangels, are they above you or below? They sit below Jesus, on ascension levels.
Wow. Okay. So let's see. Now there's another Buddhist term called moksha.
I've never heard of that.
I believe that's the state of enlightenment. Is that correct?
Moksha?
Yeah, it's this. I think they're referring to the state of ascension, but they call it enlightenment, where you overcome the reincarnation cycle and you ascend.
Okay. Is moksha above dharma? Yes, that is correct. It's many levels above dharma. And does that mean that we don't have to reincarnate? That is correct.
So if you ascend to the fourth density, do you no longer have to incarnate? Or at what level, if not?
If you ascend to the fourth density, do you no longer have to incarnate? No, you still have to incarnate, but you're going to incarnate at a dharmic level.
And what does that mean?
It means that your consciousness has risen above all the struggle. So there's your monks, basically, your Buddhist monks.
So there's a term that's kind of going around called New Earth, and supposedly we're manifesting New Earth right now. Is that correct? And this New Earth is supposed to be on the fourth density.
I think we're right at the beginning stages of this. This cycle is going to go on for a couple of 100 years. It's nothing immediate.
Okay.
That was a good question.
So at what level density do you ascend, or do you reach moksha?
Number 8.
And what?
So sorry, let me just add this. I'm so sorry. So what Buddha is telling me is that 4th, we sort of are in this dharmic cycle, and then we have a reincarnation level as we're going in, like 5th, 6th, 7th. That's more of an angelic reincarnation, but we're coming in as, guides. We're coming in as like keepers. We're coming in as miracle workers. We're coming in as oh gosh, what are they telling me? Like almost like angelic status. I can't remember. I just said that. Sorry if I did. But we're not reincarnating necessarily on the earth plane. We're attached to those that are reincarnating on the earth plane. So this is going to be like a guide level. A lot of times people want to connect with their individual spirit guides. And I know the term guides is a very generic term. I actually don't use it in a generic form. Guides to me means that it's those individuals that are there to keep and protect you and give you insight and try to help you stay on your soul path. So that's where that seems like what that reincarnation is. So we're reincarnating, but we're reincarnating not here on the earth plane, but we're reincarnating in spirit. So we are coming down out of the spirit world, but we're in a different ascension level. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. I'm glad it does to somebody because I'm like, what? Okay.
Okay. So does healing, can we, as far as getting to our dharmic path, is physical healing required, like healing our traumas and our spiritual body?
Ooh, good question. Is physical healing dharma to achieve dharma? Is physical healing required? Yes, because once you achieve dharma, even though you get physical ailments, you may come down with a disease. You just submit. Sorry, not submit. You just emit or emanate just pure gratitude. Oh, okay. So, for instance, you have a bad case of the flu. Oh, I'm grateful for this case of the flu, and whatever happens, happens. It's like no emotional attachment. Do we have to heal ourselves physically? So basically, they can still become ill. Those that are living on the Dharma plane now, right? The Dharma earthly lifetime now, they're still going to experience physical struggles, but it's how they mentally deal with it. They don't eat a lot. I don't feel like they eat a lot. I feel like they eat very minimally. I don't know why that's coming in, but that just is.
Who are you talking about? Who doesn't?
The monks. I feel like they eat. Is that true? I didn't know that. I feel like they eat very minimally.
Yeah, they go through these phases. I mean, I believe like even what are they called? I mean, it's a common like tradition. Every year they do these fasting rituals.
Oh.
Yeah. Because they believe that. So fasting heals you on a spiritual level too, correct?
Fasting heal you on a spiritual level too. Absolutely. And I can attest to that because I've done fasting. My longest fast was 5.5 months. And yes, absolutely.
Does it help with to make your ascension faster?
Does it help to make your ascension faster? If you're working on consciousness expansion, consciousness transformation, consciousness ascension on the earth plane, yes. But does it mean that you will not have to reincarnate as many times? Yes, but you may just save yourself like 2 or 3 lifetimes, which in the grand scheme of things, I guess is quite a lot.
Yeah. So, okay. Do you want to go into like the violet flame? Because
Oh, yes, yes, because what you said to me about the violet flame was interesting.
so maybe we could bring in Saint Germain. He's a ascended master, and he's the one who works with the violet flame.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
Okay, so how do apparently you can heal your body and heal traumas with the violet flame. Is this correct?
Can you heal your body and traumas with violet flame? Violet flame, this is what he says. Violet flame is for transmutation only.
So can you explain that?
Oh, that's a good, yes. So how do we explain this? So if you're talking in terms of healing, and I immediately thought of my dog, right? Because I love my dog, and he has this like spot on him that I'm not too happy about right now. And I'm saying, but what can I do with that spot? What do you mean? So I could ask the violet flame to come down and transmute it because it's still energy. It won't actually remove the energy, but it will transmute it into white light energy. And maybe that area can clear itself up. I'm like, please do that for my pooch because I think he's suffering. So yeah, so you can transmute. If there's something physical going on, you can use the violet flame to transmute. But I'm saying to Saint Germain, I'm like, but is this a permanent transformation? And he says, no, it's a process. You have to keep working on it. Now, this is a problem with a lot of healing modalities. Why? Well, because your body's natural defenses kick back in. It's how we're wired. And the reason I know this is because, again, using the CTT, it's a rewiring process. Do you work on physical ailments, Liz? No, I don't. Why? Because it's too risky. It's too dangerous. But I will work on consciousness expansion all day long. Healing trauma, yes. So I'm saying, but how many times would I have to send the violet flame to the spot on my dog for it to be healed? And it's hundreds of times. So it looks like the process of using a violet flame for transmutation is a very lengthy process, but it does work if you stick at it.
Okay, so can you can you ask archangels for healing, and if you give them permission, they can heal certain physical ailments?
If you are asking for permission to heal certain physical ailments using the archangels, does it automatically happen? No, it's whether that is in your soul contract, your life path. Sometimes those miracles do take place, but those miracles are there to show you, and that healing and that transformation is there to show you that there's something bigger than ourselves, right? That's why people have near-death experiences. That's why people get into astral travel. They leave their body. It's to prove that there's this whole other thing out there that's bigger than us. And those miracles are a confirmation, right? And they also speak about those miracles. Whenever somebody has a near-death experience, they love to tell everybody that they run into, right? And it's to pass along that confirmation to others also. So it has to be something that is predetermined in the life path.
Okay. So there is a term in the spiritual community that is talked about called light codes. And supposedly you can download these light codes into your consciousness. They're supposed to upgrade. What exactly are the light codes and what do they do?
I've never heard of the light codes. What exactly are the light codes and what do they do? So they're a frequency healing. They're a frequency, and it's how you align with that frequency. It depends which code you need. I feel like there's several hundred light codes actually. I don't know how many you've come across in your research, but it feels like there's many, many, many. And sometimes you need to use a combination of light codes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I've had experiences where I've had like downloads from, you can do something like sun gazing, and I ask for information or downloads for information, and I get sometimes all this information. Is that the same thing as a light code?
Ooh, and you'll have to explain to the audience what sun gazing is. Is that the same thing as light code? No. So, what is sun gazing?
So, I mean, it's a form, supposedly, I believe it when you look at the sun, either in the sunrise or sunset, it's kind of like it recharges your spirit body, and it supposedly gives you can ask for downloads of information, but I believe the sun is like connected to God, and I believe that we can get information from sun gazing, like spiritual information. Is that correct?
Let's ask. Let's pull the sun in and channel the sun. Are you connected to source? Absolutely. Absolutely. So the sun, what it's telling me is that it's just, I'm like, are you as like, how do we gauge source's power? The sun is only a fragment of power that source actually holds. So if we think in terms how powerful the sun actually is, right? That's crazy, isn't it? That it's only a fraction of the power that source is. And so source created the sun and wanted it to be a very powerful being. And I'm saying, do you actually have a soul? And I feel like, yes, the sun does have a soul. I'm sorry, what was the question? It was.
So from sun gazing, can we get information or downloads from source?
From sun gazing, do we get information or downloads from source? No, not directly. Sun gazing just helps like recharge your batteries, right? It makes you more consciously aware. So when you say sun gazing, are you talking about looking directly at the sun or looking directly at the sunrise? How often do you do that? How long do you do that for?
Um, yes. So when I sun gaze, I usually do it in the afternoon, but I think there's something to doing it in the morning and in the afternoon. But I believe that, well, when I do it for at least, 10, 20 minutes. And it's kind of like a meditation to where I just look directly into the sun. And I feel like, it's supposed to enhance your psychic abilities. It's supposed to, recharge your spirit, like, because everything's energy. So, like, plants grow from the sun. So, we also get energy from the sun. And so, I feel like somehow it's helping me, like, recharging me and also helping my psychic abilities.
That
Is that
is correct. Okay. When you say you look at the sun, though, you don't look directly at the sun. Surely not.
No, I do. But you can't do it like when the sun is, directly over your head, but you can do it in the morning, like sunrise, and in the afternoon, sunset, and it's okay.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. I understand. Yeah, you can look at the sun during sunset and you can look at the sun during sunrise, but any other time, I'm just saying this. I'm like, don't do that, kids. Don't try this at home, right? You don't want
Well,
people listening and saying, Liz, it's your fault. I burned my eyes out.
let's ask the sun, because there I kind of believe there's some disinformation around that they don't want us looking at the sun, because I believe that it can help us. So can we look directly at the sun without getting injured during like high noon?
That's a good question. Can we look directly at the sun without getting injured? No.
Oh, so it will affect us like at noontime if we look at it too. too long.
Yeah, you shouldn't look directly at it when it's at its most powerful state. Now, what this is interesting to me. What the sun is saying is just like you can't look directly at source, right? Now, I've tried to approach source before, and I see like this big golden light, like the sun, very similar, this huge golden light, but it is so strong and so powerful that you can only get up so close and you cannot stand to look at it for very long. The power just overwhelms you. You have to walk away.
Yeah. So can we use this the sun for healing though? Like if we do meditations?
You can use the sun for healing. Yes. Yes, that is correct. But what you have to do is you have to really focus on the energy radiating from the sun, and you have to pinpoint it to the spot that needs to be healed. And you will have to do that several times.
Does it open your third eye? Does it enhance your third eye abilities?
Does it enhance your third eye abilities? That is correct, yes.
Okay. That's all the questions I have for the sun.
Next witness.
So the Saint Germain has supposedly there's some books called the I Am Discourses that was written by an author named Godfrey Ray King, and there's I think over 10 books. They're very thick, probably 1,000 pages or so. And I haven't listened to all of them or read all of them, but he supposedly was channeling Saint Germain during these, when he was writing these books. And I want to ask Saint Germain, are the stories accurate?
Oh, I am discourses.
Yes. By Saint Germain, and he was channeling Saint Germain. They're not accurate?
No, not in their entirety. No, that's a good question.
His first book was called Unveiled Mysteries, and he was telling stories of some mysteries of how everything works and the universe works, and that you can kind of, your belief system and and also your vibration or frequency can create, basically the same experience that Jesus had, because Jesus was an ascended master. So supposedly did Saint Germain ascend in his lifetime? Because he actually did exist at some point in the physical realm.
Ascend in his lifetime. Did you ascend in your lifetime? He ascended once he got on the other side. Did you have lifetimes in the physical? Yes, he's had many lifetimes in the physical. He's like, thank God I don't have to do that again. He's very cheeky. Yeah, so he did have many lifetimes in the physical.
So can you ascend because supposedly in this book, one of the stories was this lady, her son died, and she was really upset about it. And then she died, but then she came back like Jesus did. And it was supposedly because she ascended and she was able to come back in physical form. Is that how it works? Is that how ascension works? Like you have to die first and then you can come back? Or can you actually achieve ascension while you're alive?
Can you achieve ascension while you're alive? Yes, you can achieve ascension while you're alive, but only by consciousness realms. That's the only way, by consciousness. And you take the body with you. What does that mean?
Well, there's stories of people who actually can just through their, I guess, ascended state of mind, they can walk through walls, they can teletransport physically because they've reached an ascension state while living.
That is correct.
And they can do it on a physical level, not on a spiritual level.
Can they do it on a physical level? No, they do it on a spiritual level.
So there's a story about a guy who, like, I'm not sure where exactly it is. I think it's in India, where he supposedly has reached a state of ascension that he could put his hand through a wall. Is that accurate?
Can he put his hand through a wall?
His physical hand.
No, but
No?
what he can do is project his energy of his hand on the other side of that wall. So it makes people think that they're looking at his hand going through the wall.
Oh.
That's pretty deep, huh? I'm like, how did he do that? So you can project that energy, and it's how you do it with your mind. That's pretty deep.
So let's say, for example, in this book, the first book called Unveiled Mysteries, the lady who had died and then she came back in physical form. Is that possible? I mean,
Yes.
besides Jesus, so if you reach a state of ascension after you die, you can actually come back in physical form and be seen by people.
But I feel like the death was short. So I feel like it's kind of like one of those near-death experiences. Does that make sense?
Possibly, but in the book, it made it seem like she had actually passed, and then she came back. But
back in physical form. No, to come back in physical form, you would have to need another body.
Oh, okay.
Once the body dies, it's gone.
Okay. So after you have completed you've overcome the reincarnation cycle and reached the state of moksha, like let's say Jesus or these ascended masters, what then? What is your goal? Just to help other people reach that state from the spiritual realm?
That's a good question. What is the goal after that? What is the goal once you've reached the state of moksha? It's to help guide and insight others. And you just keep going through that, because what Buddha is saying to me is you can really screw up somebody's life, right? When you're a guide, if you're not doing your job properly, you can cause mayhem and destruction. And I'm like, is that what's going on with my guides? And he's laughing at me. I'm like, yeah, is that what's going on? They don't know what they're doing, but I feel like they're tried and tested. They're very strategically placed as guides. They are, we have more than one guide at a time. And they are very excuse me, they are very trustworthy.
Okay. So I wanted to go into some questions about karma.
Okay.
We touched on this a little bit, but I did want to ask you because, supposedly karma cycles are like when you do something to someone, you either have to experience what you've done to that person in another life, or, maybe it's something that a pattern that you repeat until you've learned the lesson. And so I wanted to ask you specifically about doing reading, or when you do mind probes on people, is that something that's karmic, like that act itself, like, or ethical, I guess, or unethical?
That's a good question. And I get asked that a lot. Let me ask Buddha and Jesus, are the mind probes unethical? No, it depends what I use the mind probes for. Okay. I always try to use them in an ethical way. But as we had a brief discussion before we hit the record button today, if you want to say that mind probes are unethical, then you need to go ahead and say that all psychic information is unethical. And what do I mean by that? Because when you're using tools like tarot cards, pendulums, remote viewing, most people don't know exactly where the information is coming from. They just know that, hey, this is possibly good information, right? Or it could be wrong. It depends where you're going with it. That's why I try to do the mind probes, because I'm pulling it straight from the source, right? There's no room. Well, there is room for error based upon quantum probabilities, but you know, especially on that today's information, unless you're probing Elon Musk, it's usually very accurate. Now, people think that our thoughts, feelings, opinions, desires, dreams, negative emotions towards others, people think that all that information is private information, and it's not. All that information is already known before we even know it by the universe. And so, you know, that's how I'm able to pull the information. I do ask for permission. You asked me that question. That was a good question. I do ask for permission. I don't ask for permission live on camera, simply because I've had loads of people say in the comments, no, you didn't, you're a liar, blah, blah, blah. They didn't give you permission. So I just don't even bring that sort of idea to the audience, right? But the mind probes are not bad karma, as long as you're using them in a good light. And sometimes, you know, a little bit of the exposing people, okay, it may be bad for that person that is being exposed, like Sam Bankman-Fried, okay? I'm calling several hits on that one. Now it's coming out that he was a master manipulator. He was a gaslighter. He was all these things that we got from that probe. And now people are talking about it, and that's coming out. Well, yes, but that information to the broad audience is very enlightening, right? Because a lot of them lost a lot of money in FTX, right? They want to know how this happened. How could someone like him let this happen? So when you're talking about exposing, I try to do it in a very nice way, but exposing people, it's usually to bring the light onto others. It's no different than the media really chasing people around, snapping photographs, digging into their lives. And you have to lump all psychic information together. And I know that there'll be people that disagree with me out there that, no, you don't. Well, yes, you do. Because at the end of the day, how many times have we been told, especially in this country and in Christian countries, that you're not supposed to tap into past lives, you're not supposed to channel the dead, you're not supposed to access psychic information. You got David Oates, who does reverse speech, who gets slated all the time by people saying, oh my God, he's the devil, he's this, he's that. When he's exposing people through reverse speech, he takes their speech and he reverses them. And you guys, if you don't know who David Oates is, you should check out his work. He is on Facebook. He puts all of his stuff on public there. And so when you're doing a tarot spread, right? Say you're doing a tarot spread on, I don't know, the President Biden, okay? Or Rishi Sunak, or any world leader. You're doing a tarot spread. Well, that's just as unethical as doing a mind probe, because you could be pulling information straight from the source, right? You don't know that you are. You can't be too certain that you are, but you can pull your tarot cards and you can get a lot of information using those tools. Well, he likes this and he likes that, and maybe this one's having an affair, and maybe this and maybe that, or he beats it. You know, all of this information comes out. So if you want to say that mind probes are unethical, then you need to go ahead and switch the YouTube off and not tap into any psychic information. That's my own personal feeling about it. What do you think?
Well, so I'd like to ask Jesus, or maybe Buddha, is karma canceled if your intention is to help, like, a lot of people or the masses?
Ooh, good question. Is karma canceled if your intention is to help the people or the masses? It basically, if your intention is pure and your intention is good, then that it generates good karma, and that good karma comes back in. If your intentions are demonic, if your intentions are dark, or that of jealousy or that of, any of those dark emotions, then you're going to be in the bad karma cycle. So it looks like karma, from what they're showing me, and when I say they, I mean Buddha and Jesus, is that karma comes in many different cycles. Okay, so you have like the bad karma cycle, you have the witness karma cycle, and then you have the good karma cycle. And I've actually, that makes sense to me, because whenever I've done CTT sessions, I find that you're either the perpetrator, the victim, or the witness. So the fact that it's now been highlighted in these 3 significant circles of karma, and we have all these going, these energetic circles going, cycles or circles, whatever you want to call them, running within us all day long. It's all energy bound.
Okay. So I have a little confusion about the meaning of compassion.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of have my own idea, but I'd like to ask Jesus or Buddha, what is compassion, and how is what is compassion?
So compassion is empathy for others, and you have to be able to understand that their trauma, their sadness, their plight, in order to have compassion. So compassion is the feeling sorry for them. But in order to feel sorry for somebody, you have to have empathy.
So like even murderers or people who rapists, and where do you draw the line? Like, is compassion meaning like when you forgive someone, you can have compassion for them, but without interacting with them, or even like, let's say on a lower level, like family members. So if you have to draw boundaries, how do you have compassion, and where is the line drawn between having compassion and having boundaries?
That's a good question. Where's the line drawn between having compassion and having boundaries? The line is drawn at self-love, right? So you can have compassion, but your self-love has to be more than compassion. Now, when I say self-love, I'm not speaking in a narcissistic form, which is all me all the time, nobody else, everybody else is disposable, sorry. And I'm not talking like that. I'm talking about, I love you, but I love myself more, that I can't let you drag me down through trauma. So the boundary lines are self-love.
So when you have compassion for a murderer, is that also includes forgiving them, or just seeing that they're, struggling, and because of their struggle, they ended up killing someone? Is that compassion?
Compassion is not equal to forgiveness. Compassion and forgiveness are 2 completely different things. Compassion is based upon an understanding of that person's situation. You can understand that situation, but you can never forgive them for it, right? So God forbid if it should happen to any of us, okay? God forbid that. You can have compassion, but you can never forgive them. It's almost like the example that's come forward is like suicide, right? Somebody could be so depressed, or, they have such a strong addiction that the only way out is suicide. They can't find any way out. And they've tried therapy, they've tried rehab, they've tried all of these different methods, and it's actually driving them absolutely crazy. They can't take it anymore, and they commit suicide, right? Don't do that, because you will have to repeat that again in the next lifetime. You can have compassion for them. I understand why. However, I will never forgive them for committing suicide because they left their children, or they hurt their mother, or they did this or they did that. I mean, how could they be so selfish? So compassion and forgiveness are 2 very different things. That was a good question.
Is forgiveness required to learn the lesson of karma in order to ascend?
Oh, that's another great question. Is forgiveness required in order to learn the lesson of ascension? No.
So what is the importance of forgiveness then?
Why is forgiveness so important? Forgiveness is a state of mind to say that you've actually moved on and that you have risen above the trauma, the vibrational level of the trauma. Doesn't necessarily mean you have reached an ascension level, as in you've ascended from level 2 into level 3 into level 4. It just means an expansion of consciousness whereby I no longer am going to give energy to this situation. I'm going to forgive it and I'm going to move on.
Is forgiveness required to break a karmic cycle?
Ooh, good question. Is forgiveness required to break a karmic cycle? No. And excuse me, I'll go ahead and just say this. Cord cutting. Does cord cutting work for you, Miss Tina? I mean, because I find that it doesn't work.
I think it could for certain situations, but in general, no, I don't think so.
Right. So all of you that are going to psychic mediums that are saying, all you have to do is take in a pair of etheric scissors and cord cut that soul contract and let it go. Wrong, wrong, wrong. That does not work. I have tried that. I have done CTT sessions on cord cutting. It doesn't work. You cannot cut a soul contract, right? And this goes into the CTT session that we had today, where your conscious mind can be at war with your soul, and you can try to dictate to your soul what your life plan is going to be. But you have to understand you're already energetically programmed in the body that you are residing in, right? That's already been pre-programmed out. So you can sit here at war with your soul as much as possible. You're not going to win. Your conscious mind will lose.
We kind of had this discussion a little bit. I was able to break a soul contract. Remember?
You were able to break a soul contract, but look how much you had to work towards to break that soul contract, right? And so that soul contract for you, and I don't know if you want to talk about your experience. I think it's very significant, but your soul contract was there to bring about this in-depth spiritual learning, this wisdom, this digging and looking every nook and cranny for information, right? Look how now you've come out the other side. I believe when you got to the other side of that trauma, that experience, then you could break that soul contract, right? And I think that soul contract was over at that point. So I think that, yes, you were able to break it because at that point it was over.
Okay.
But you had many lifetimes with this very powerful, dominant, spiritual, well, you know, what did you say? Like a white light disguise. What was that you said?
A false light.
False light with this false light.
Yeah. And I guess I don't mind talking about it. It's, you know, just as a warning to a lot of people who are thinking about going to see shamans in, you know, South America, let's just say, you really have to be careful. You really have to be careful because there's a lot of them out there who are practicing black magic and doing very bad things. They pretend to be helping people, but they're not. And so, you know, and I thought the person I went through was trying to help me, and he goes out saying that he's helping everyone, and he's not. He is doing very bad things. So, and I found that out through Liz and another person. And it's very difficult to remove the stuff that they do because you have to know how to do it. And not everyone, very few people know how to do it. So,
that's true.
Which I was able to ask the archangels, work with archangels and ascended masters to do it, and they were able to remove a lot of this stuff. And so why were they able to remove it for me versus like someone else?
So let me ask Buddha, why was Why were they able to remove it? Because it was time for that cycle to be broken. You see, you were going to be trapped in that cycle. So say, let's say you're not the person who you actually are. I mean, you are the person, but you're very much a researcher, right? You know how to research. You go really deep. You do these deep dives. Say all these bad things happen to you, and you remember shortly after, this darkness was prevailing in your life. Like bad things were happening, they were coming in, and it was all part of this trickery from the shaman. And you're not the only person that's ever said that, there's a lot of bad shamans out there. There are a lot of bad shamans out there, particularly if you're female. You could go down to, a place in South America, and while you're drinking your mushroom tea or your ayahuasca or whatever, you can be sexually assaulted. Okay. Personally, I don't like to lose control of my body and my mental status. I think that these things can be achieved by doing CTT sessions. You don't have to go in the middle of it nowhere and try to achieve this enlightenment. I mean, you start talking to things. And so how this shaman, if you don't mind, Miss Sina, me saying this, gain this control and this power, was that you were under, I think, ayahuasca or something about a tree. Can you explain that?
So from what I understand, there's a tree that has special powers. This is what the shaman told us, that he found this tree that has special powers. It glows in the dark. And he was able to get information from the tree to enhance his powers and also steal power. Basically, when you die at this tree, he can use the tree to anchor into your body, into your energy, and steal your energy, and almost like control or possess you. And, basically just siphon energy from you. But that's his main purpose. But yeah. And Liz, I think we did a probe into the tree, and the tree, we found out that the tree does have special powers, but that I cannot do the diet again or I can't drink the tea again, because since I've had that connection, it will still affect me, right?
Right. So when you lose when your consciousness, is let go during these sort of ceremonies, that your power is easily given up, right? You would gravitate naturally back towards that tree, because that's the way it's been set up. I mean, I don't know how this shaman did all that, but it's very nasty business. And just like how that tree had a hold over you and stole your power, because that's what they're trying to do. That's the same experience that I had. Yes, I was completely sober and I wasn't on drugs. I don't do drugs, right? But that's the same experience that I had when I was in New Orleans, and this shop called Hex put black magic on the back of this massive mirror, and every time somebody walked by the mirror, it captured their soul, and then they would use it in a ceremony to all those people's souls that were captured, even if it was just for a brief second, and they were stealing energy because they think by stealing energy, it's going to make them more powerful. And it doesn't work like that, right? Stealing energy, if you want to talk about bad karma, go steal someone's energy, because that will come back on you like you would not believe. And furthermore, you don't know what diseases, what ailments, what mental status, what all these people have that are passing, whether they're connecting with that tree or they're passing by this mirror, and you're stealing their life force energy. Well, those filaments of diseases, mental status, and all that are easily sucked into that energy strand and sent back to them as well. Trust me, it's not something you want to do. It will always come back on you. However, for this instance, we established, and actually, I'll go ahead and say that experience made me a much stronger medium, because I was like, whoa, I've never heard of this before. I was very new to all this stuff. And I had to learn my way out of it, right? Which is exactly what you have had to do. And when we tapped into his, soul contract with all the people he's coming across, they're having to learn their way out of it as well. So as long as you can overcome these situations, you come out the other side and you understand them, you process them, and you are a much more spiritually connected person due to all the learning that you've had to do. And then I think at that point, your learning had finished, right? You'd learned as much as you could from that experience, and therefore the soul contract was allowed to be, broken.
Okay. Well,
it's very fascinating stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
But this thing of taking an etheric pair of scissors and conscious mind breaking a soul contract, wrong. No, that you can't do that.
Yeah, I think that might just work for like if you were obsessing about someone, or if you're in a state of like your mind, I think it's more just about you, and it's in a state of mind you're in at that moment. You could probably, do that. It's like a visualization technique, but I don't think it works for things that, like soul contracts.
Right. It may just be like a conscious mind breaking, like I don't want to think about them anymore. I keep cutting the cord. Yes, that's correct. But on a soul level, no.
Yeah. So, okay. I think that's all the questions I have. I just wanted to clarify though that the tree that the shaman was working with was not ayahuasca. It was a special tree that there's very few on the earth, and the tree has like special spiritual powers, right? We probed the tree, remember?
Yeah, it did.
It had some kind of spiritual knowledge or spiritual power. Is very, and so that tree is different than ayahuasca. It's not any of the plants or trees that most shamans work with. This specific tree was something that this shaman was able to connect with and use. And it's very powerful, and he apparently was using this tree to, control people and anchor into people and steal their energy. So just so people understood that. Okay.
Yeah. And can you also explain to everyone out there, because they probably won't know, what does it mean to diet a tree?
So it's kind of like fasting. When you go, anyone who's been to done ayahuasca knows this. You have to go on a special diet where you don't eat salt, you don't eat spices, you restrain from sex, you do all these things to prepare yourself to drink a plant, and it helps you connect with the plant. It enhances your psychic ability or your spiritual ability to kind of connect with the plant. And so that's what it means to diet. And then you drink the plant, actually. So and kind of communicate with the plant on a spiritual level.
So were you under any ayahuasca or any hallucinogenics when you were communicating with the tree, or was that solely because you dieted the tree?
Well, I believe you can communicate with anything without having to be on, any kind of psychedelics or anything.
Absolutely.
But when I was on ayahuasca, I was definitely able to see or like hear the communication. I could hear the plants talking to me. I was talking with the tree, and the tree told me how to communicate telepathically. It actually showed me, and I was taken to other lands. I saw the shaman actually took me to, kind of showed me how his society works. And so my psychic ability was very, very enhanced from taking ayahuasca, but that's not always the case. A lot of people who did it didn't see anything. They just see blackness. So if you have psychic ability, it does enhance your psychic ability. And I was able to communicate with the tree very easily when I was taking ayahuasca, but without taking ayahuasca, I feel like I could probably communicate, but it's not as apparent to me. Like, just like I have psychic abilities, my psychic abilities are not apparent to me. Like, sometimes I get hits and sometimes I get visions, or sometimes I hear something, but it's not always like, I don't always go, oh, that's my psychic ability. So I have to work on that to get it more to where I recognize it.
And yeah, that's something definitely. It's constant practice, and if you don't use your abilities, you tend to, I don't think you lose them, but you get rusty, right? So it's something that you have to use on a regular basis. That is very fascinating. And I appreciate you sharing that, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are experimenting with mushrooms and experimenting with ayahuasca and other forms of hallucinogenics in order to heal trauma. But I don't know. I'm just a stickler. I just don't like the fact. I don't like being under the influence of anything.
Yeah, I would say to those people that you're probably better off trying to connect with archangels and your spirit self or your higher self to heal yourself. You can do it without psychedelics. I've learned the hard way.
Right. And I think where the fascination lies is the fact that they want to be the ones to, communicate directly in order to facilitate the healing. Whereas when you have to use other people, so like for me, I do the CTT, I tune in for people, and there's Reiki practitioners, and there's BQH, QHHT, all these different modalities out there, emotion code, muscle testing, all of that, right? But you have to use someone else because you're not able to tune in for yourself. And I think that's where the fascination lies, is the fact that you're able to tune in for yourself and have that experience. However, I don't try to heal myself, right? You know what I mean? Like I have to use someone else to heal myself, or I have to do CTT with someone else. I never do it on my own, right? You always need, to me, yes, you could do it on your own through meditation and things like that. And that's guided as well. So meditation is actually guided. If you're listening to a meditate, you're still being guided. Okay, we're going to go in and we're going to do this. And now we're going to leave and we're going to close properly. That's a guided meditation. But if you're just sitting, at home on the floor with your legs crossed and you're trying to tune in and heal yourself that way, yes, it's worth a shot. But it's very difficult. It's not easy to do. But you're right. You can heal yourself. Do you use guided meditation, Miss Sina?
I do for just meditation in general, but when I'm trying to do self healing, I don't do guided meditation. I just connect with my higher self, the angels, archangels, and you have to give them permission to do the work. And it doesn't always work, but I think it can help.
Right. So that's good. That's good information. So you go in, you connect with your higher self, and then you give yourself permission and them permission to come in and do the work on you. But that's provided you know what needs fixing, right? Because a lot of times, and that's good information. A lot of times when people come to the CTT and we let the soul decide what needs to be healed, they have no idea that is an issue for them. They understand it as we're going through the information, but they don't understand, before we were going through that information, they never knew that was part of them that needed to be healed. So I'll give you an example. Over the weekend, and I know she won't mind me using this example, this is just a simple example. She says, I procrastinate. This lady says, I procrastinate. I got to get rid of this procrastination. But the reason it's not just procrastination. There's going to be layers of feelings underneath that procrastination that causes the procrastination, right? And I said, well, give me an example of something that you procrastinate about. And she said, well, I don't like balancing my bank books, whatever. And I was like, okay. And actually, as we peeled off the layers, going through removing layers with the CTT, there was a lot of fear because, she didn't like to see money going out, right? She's very cautious with money. She's very good with money, and she has goals in mind. And every time like $1 or $2 would go out of that bank account and she had to physically acknowledge it by balancing her books, that was scary to her because the big fear there was, I won't be able to reach my goals. And then there was also a lot of guilt attached to it. So she would see where maybe she bought herself, a new shirt or something that she needed, and she didn't want to look at the outgoing because there was a lot of guilt that my needs were not important. Everybody else's needs come before mine. And therefore, it's better to not even acknowledge those uncomfortable feelings, label it as procrastination, and then say, I'm just not going to do it. Right? But until we peeled those layers of procrastination off, and then she could identify, well, yes, that is how I feel. Okay, now I understand why I procrastinate. So that's the sort of thing that the soul will bring forward. So as long as you understand what needs to be healed, or there's a way to access what needs to be healed, because the conscious mind is relatively of low intelligence compared to the soul. And like I said before, when we were talking, you can have a war with your soul all you want to, but you will not win. You will not win. You may lose the little battle here and there, but you'll lose the war. And I promise you that. Well, thank you, Miss Tina, and thank you for being here and sharing your knowledge and all these wonderful questions. Are you pulling cards at the moment?
No, I might do it in the future, but no.
Well, when you do in the future, you let us know so people know where to find you. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Please drop a comment below.